Hello, I am the tree.
We are going to be doing a brief presentation and teaching project on Dream of the Rood, talking about the actual contents of the poem, historical context, using the theory of structuralism to give a better and deeper understanding of the poem.
So, structuralism is kind of in the name. The theory deals with the structure of said text, which is Dream of the Rood. Kind of talk about how the text is put together, the language used, symbols used within the text, and what they do to enhance said text.
So, Dream of the Rood, in its historical context, is more of a transitional piece of literature because it blends the cultures, religion, ideas, and morals of the Anglo-Saxon people with the newer age Christian people and their beliefs. Anglo-Saxon beliefs tended to be more about the individual and the warrior's narrative, someone who was brave and was looking after themselves, mainly focusing on doing good actions rather than just believing. In Christian beliefs, it was a more humble person, usually working under the idea of a higher up person, and and that higher up person guided all of their morals and their actions and their thoughts and their beliefs. Dream of the Rood blended the two ideas together by having a story that had a tree talking that was going to give an individualistic narrative while simultaneously pushing the ideas of being humble and submissive and having humility that would come from the Christian ideas and values of the time.
So within the poem, it's basically split up into three sections, and it goes from the dreamer to the tree becoming the narrator, and then the tree adopts a new identity or version of itself. The root, the cross. And then the cross talks about its transition from a tree to a crucifix, and mind you, everything in this poem is a dream. And then the vision of the dream uses strong imagery of like Christianity in order to reach the audience of Anglo-Saxon, because like Jesus said, they valued more like strength and warrior culture, but in Christianity that's not what they're all about. And then within the poem there's also this strong theme of agony and hope, because Christ has died on the cross and then he is risen and he's gonna come again.
The transitory period between Anglo-Saxon to Christianity is an important one, especially with this particular text, as it kind of made it more accessible to the people at the time, where Anglo-Saxon was the more popular type of writing scene. So creating a Christian text that applies some more Anglo-Saxon ideas made it more appealing for a large amount of people to get more into Christianity themselves.
Introducing a new text with new cultural ideas and morals is a very difficult thing to do, usually because cultures and groups of people are not too receptive to change. So by blending and mixing the two cultures, the narratives, and the ideas, by having a tree who has an individualistic narrative push the messages of something quite different, it's able to blend and softly introduce a new idea that can possibly be accepted. Once it is accepted, then people can go and spread their own word, as most texts do in oral tradition, considering that this is quite an old text that we're dealing with.
And alongside this being an old text, it did try very hard to reach to its respected audience, to the point where within the text, when Christ is being crucified, the root itself feels the same pain that Christ is going through. And through that, it enhances the readers to think about Christianity and perhaps make this change or question their own Anglo-Saxon belief, introducing this new Christianity belief.
An important thing about the poem as well is that while there is an introduction of different beliefs, it is not directly bashing or insulting the old culture. It is still honoring it and giving it space so that it has its own weight and can appeal to the people without causing a defensive attitude from the people who would be reading the poem at the time and possibly be taking in cultural change.
So each of us reading the text kind of didn't really totally understand the Christian aspects of it. I myself did not realize that it was really about Christ or about his crucifixion, and we were kind of in a similar boat. So it's interesting reading it in a modern context, and that, yeah, people are still Christian, it still exists, but it's not necessarily as emphasized as it was back when this text was written.
The poem itself also goes through 3 different sections, kind of represented by our get-ups ourselves. It starts with the tree being its own unique perspective, and then it slowly moves into something that's quite half and half Anglo-Saxon and Christian when it goes to the cross being personified and talking about its pain and suffering and what it has washed, to the last section where it becomes overtly Christian and is pushing the ideals. So it does slowly, like it would hopefully impact society, it does slowly ease you into the idea, which is most likely why I think that when we were reading it, we didn't notice the true, I guess, preachiness of the poem until later on in the end, when there's direct mentions or references to Christ being crucified. So that probably would have happened with people reading it of the time too, is they would have read it as a normal story, unassuming, until they had gotten to the end and then gotten the punchline or so of what the message was trying to be, which is why the structure of it is very important.
Yeah, and then I believe, again, as the cross has said, while reading the poem, the Christian theme went over our heads. I personally did not even think about it, and I'm a Christian myself. But you know, I feel like that's what makes the poem stand out, is the fact that it doesn't like shove the idea of Christianity down somebody's throat, and it still has like a beauty appeal behind it of, you know, a tree and the cross, because it also deals with nature. But yeah, I believe modern readers who will who approach this poem might not even think about it in a religious sense, but once you read it under a religious sense, it's still like, what am I saying? It still holds up to what it means, and it's not trying to overtly and aggressively convert people. It's just blending in the two softly so that, you know, this transition period won't be so harsh.
And to build off what our tree was saying, it also allows for variety. So you can read this poem from a secular point of view. You can also read it with a cultural point of view, historical. You can read it with a religious point of view, surely enough. But it allows for multiple perspectives. And while it can be very separate and individual, it can also be very blended, which is why the versatility of this poem and its structure, how it's built, is very good for analysis of cultural change over time and different ideas.
Dream of the Rood
is a great text from 16th century. So structuralism. Okay, let's do it again.
And introducing our tree. Woo!
Now introducing Jesus Christ himself. Give it up.
Woo! Last but not least, the infamous cross, the crucifix itself. And the trio, all of us together. The tree that made the cross that made the Jesus. The cross
The Jesus?
That made Jesus.
that
Whoa.
inspired the story, The Dream of the Rood.
Thank you for a TED Talk.